Tonight's special guest is Tony Amos. Tony is here tonight in a new role to pay tribute to his best buddy, Kevin Black, who passed away last week, just a day after appearing as special guest on The Beat Goes On. We were shocked, the nation was shocked. For us baby boomers, Kevin was a major part of our lives, the morning DJ for our generation. We welcome Tony Amos as our special guest on The Beat Goes On. Tony Amos, it's not politics tonight, it's something
good to see you.
Very sad.
Very sad.
You are our wonderful political correspondent, Tony, and you're also one of the greatest friends of Kevin Black, who was our special guest last week. So this week you're the special guest to tell us.
Tonight, Jared, I'm the Kevin Black correspondent. Yeah. Not the correspondent, the correspondent.
The Blackie has left the building.
Blackie has left the planet, mate.
Yeah.
Sadly, yeah, Kevin Black, Kevin Joseph Black. Remarkable man, lovely man, truly wonderful individual, an inspiring bloke, a sense of humour, didn't have an enemy in the world, just one of the world's great gentlemen, a great dad, 3 beautiful children, Candace, Xavier and Kyron. So proud of his kids, loved them dearly, so proud, proud of himself, proud of his work, proud of his life, proud of his friends, proud of everything he did. And look, we were proud to know and love him as well. Yeah, just a good guy.
Tony, where were you when you heard the news?
I was at home, home on Monday evening, and received a phone call from his home to my home. And to be fair, Jared, I was so stunned, mate. I thought somebody was taking the piss, if you'll pardon the expression.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. Like just out of the blue, mate. Just out of the blue on a Monday night, changed his life, changed our lives too. Just one of those terrible calls that we all hate to get. But of course, mate, there's 2 things that happen to all of birth and death. And yet when it happens, it knocks us around a bit, doesn't it?
69, still very young, isn't it?
One of his favourite numbers, but too young to go, mate. Absolutely right. Yeah, far too young. And in fact, because his birthday's in January, he just turned 69, and over the last week or 2, he'd been talking to me and a couple of other mates too about planning his 70th birthday party. And he didn't have a plan to have that at Grandpa's, which was the old, our other old mates, Tommy Adderley and David Puku Henderson, their old nightclub in Durham Street, which is now a bit of a bar again. So Kevin was planning to have his 70th birthday as part of the 70s at Grandpa's, but sadly, it's not to be, mate.
What happened after that? Went to Auckland the next day?
I got the news. I spoke to a couple of friends that night. Another old buddy, Fred Boddicker, rang me from Perth, and we had a big long conversation about our mate, Blackie, and that's good too. It's good when you can talk about your mates who passed away with other mates. Had a tear with my family as well, because my wife and daughter and my son and my elder daughter are all very close. I mean, we're 2 close families and just close people. And he was a good man. He's one of my best mates and always will be.
You got to Auckland and you went round to the family home, and of course
came up the next day, spent the day with the family and others. Close family, close friends, all that. And the grieving process is starting, but there was still shock around,
Now you go a long way back with Kevin Black, don't you?
A long way back with Kevin Black. There you go.
A long way back with Kevin Black.
Yeah, well, I mean, before I met
How
Blackie,
did it all
of course.
Start? Yeah.
Before I met Blackie, he was a Wellington boy. Grew up in Wellington. Went to St. Pat's in Wellington. Still has mates from St. Pat's as well. That he went to school with. People like Nigel Norswell. Still very, very close friends. He left St. Pat's and went off to England to go to sailor school, became a merchant seaman, which he did, sailed the world several times, loved being at sea, and then whilst he was having that experience, of course, he stumbled across Radio Caroline, a pirate radio ship broadcasting in the UK, and that's where he got his first taste of broadcasting. He did some work as a broadcaster on Radio Caroline, then he came, I'm praising a bit, then he came back to New Zealand. In 1972 did the NZBC, the New Zealand Broadcasting Corporation's training school, the same intake as Paul Holmes. Yep, he and Leakey were in the same intake. They did that together, and then they went off and developed their own careers. Kevin went to Dunedin, worked on radio there and television, then came to Auckland to ZM, and I was at Hauraki then.
Can you remember your first meeting?
Mate, I remember hearing him the first time, and I was with another mate from Hauraki. We'd heard about this guy, we tuned in and had a listen. Who's this prat calling himself Captain Blackie, we thought, And then a few weeks later, we met him at a function. Yeah. And then, in 1976, he came to Radio Hauraki. And that's when his career really took off, And then he became king of the prank calls and humour and entertainment and showbiz. You know, he loved the showbiz factor of broadcasting, but he was a very, very instinctive broadcaster. He was a man with a natural talent and powerful instincts and a lot of creativity. And of course, Kevin did have some torture in his soul. You know, I mean, many of us do. Kevin had some torture in his soul from his younger days, and often it's that torture that helps create and then develop and then release creative juices.
Well, he never let it affect him, did he? He was
Of
always
course he
happy.
didn't. Of course he was always happy. But I mean, nothing savage in his life, but some torture in his soul. And sometimes, as I say, that helps create or release the creativity. And he was a very creative man, a creative broadcaster, a creative thinker, a good thinker. You know, a good person to have a discussion with about most things in the world. A man of compassion too. You know, he cared about people getting trodden, and he cared about people not as fortunate as he may have been. You know, he had a good caring sense of the world.
But you and him got on so well. So what was the friendship? There must be something special between the two of you. You know, you got on so well, didn't
Look,
you?
we did
I mean,
get
you
on
met
well.
a lot of people, but you and him are
We
close
did,
buddies,
we
right?
did, and we did some things separately, a lot of stuff separately, but we remained for a long, long time, for nearly 4 decades, certainly over 3 decades, very close mates, you know, good mates. We worked together at 3 or 4 different radio stations, and then we were at radio stations competing with each other in a sense as well, if you like. Our styles were different, but that was the bottom line. But we still remained very good friends, and we could go away. I mean, this is a bloke that I went to Stewart Island with. With the Mad Butcher. This is a bloke that I went to Australia with a few times too. You know, we went away for weekends. And look, there was always mischief about. And Gerard, I don't mind a bit of mischief. And Kevin certainly thrived on a bit of mischief. Nothing bad, but a good bit of mischief and a good bit of humour and a good bit of lifestyle always goes well, in my experience, to bond a couple of good mates up as well.
Can you remember any special piece of mischief making that he was famous for?
I can indeed. Not that he was famous for. I can remember some absolutely shocking mischief stuff that he did, but I'm not going to tell you. Because he might be listening and watching. No, he's just one of life's real gentlemen and a true friend. Gerard, many of us had some ups and downs in life, you know, and I've got to say that when I've been in my dark times, if I've had dark times, in my darkest dark times, who was there for me? Kevin Black was. You know, Blackie, mate. He knew about friendship, he knew about people, he knew about his mates, and he knew how to care. And I like to think that when the tables were turned, that I was there for him as well, and some of his other close buddies too.
Now, there's a well-known theory that when a man retires and he loses a sense of purpose in life, he's retired and he potters around and he drives his wife mad, and we've heard these stories, and it's not long after he retires that he ends up dying. Funny enough, Kevin left radio 2 years ago. Do you think that had any effect on?
Not at all, mate. Not at all. His spirit was the same. I mean, he loved radio. He was always going to miss radio. If he retired when he was 98, he would have missed radio. Yeah. That's what happens. You've been a radio man, Gerard. I was a radio man. I mean, you miss some aspects of that particular stuff that you do. But no, I think, no, not at all. No, Kevin's death sadly just came a bolt out of the blue, literally.
Now, had he had any problems with his heart before?
Not that anyone's aware of.
That's the first you've heard of it?
Yep, not that anyone's aware of.
So,
just suddenly, wasn't feeling too good that day. He'd been around at another friend's place in the afternoon, and he'd had a beef sandwich or something. He said he had a bit of heartburn. Said he might have a wee bit of heartburn. That was the only indication. Yes. And of course, it was only an hour or two later that he passed away. So incredibly sad, you know. I mean, just one of those bloody sad things that happen.
Now, you'll be there, of course, tomorrow at the funeral, Tony, and
many of us will be. There'll be lots of people there at the funeral. It'll be for one of our great broadcasting legends, as well as being a great mate. He's one of our great broadcasting legends. Some of us would say our greatest broadcaster.
Well, what we're going to do now, Tony, we're just going to play a little bit of last week. He was our special guest. It's always good to remember him one more time.
Kevin Joseph Black, the world's greatest broadcaster in New Zealand.
Kevin, are you missing the world of thinking fast, thinking with your wits, radio, breakfast sessions? Good to say goodbye to that, or do you miss it sometimes?
Well, look, the only thing I do, because I haven't worked for 2 years, so there's parts of me that say you deserve not getting out of bed at 4:30 every morning. You deserve that sleeper. But I tell you what you do miss the people.
You miss the people,
not the content. The people around you that allow the content to happen, you know. And if you're working with good people and touch wood, all my life, there's been one or two a-holes, but in the main, most of the people I work with are great, encouraging, and socially, in all aspects of our lives, I think we've got on with a bit of this and a bit of that, and enjoyed ourselves.
Gosh, that could have been his last interview, couldn't it? It was
his last interview.
2 weeks ago.
That was Blackie's last broadcast.
Before you go, Tony, thank you for coming in. Especially, we got you off the beach. You're supposed
You dragged me away from the beach.
You're supposed to be doing our political commentary, but of course you've been hanging around the beach, and we finally got you off the beach.
And Jared, my pleasure to be here for Kevin Black. My pleasure to be here for his wife, Kristen, who was his rock, and for his 3 beautiful children, Candace, Xavier, and Kyron.
Kevin Black, Ross Goodwin, Paul Holmes. It seems to be a week of collecting broadcasters.
Mate, it's a trifecta. Somebody could have won.
Now, Tony, we're going to see you once again on the program. The beat goes on. We're looking forward to it.
Good on you, Jared.
We'll be back with the politics, and
see you then.
See you then. Thank you, Tony.